And welcome back to A.R. Sales, aka the A.R.T podcast. I am A.R. Bala, and today we have a very special guest, extremely artistic, unbelievable mind, imaginative. I got the honor of getting her arc that I just received. It just came out. Been giving it out, doing the whole arc review before the actual book release, getting it prepped. A War Amongst the Stars. Phenomenal. We're going to get into the cover, going to get everything. But without any further ado, Tristin Clark. How are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm feeling phenomenal. One thing that I honestly had to start asking at just the top of the episode when a person's going to release the book is, how are you feeling?
Okay, so this is like a weird thing. I feel so numb right now. Like before, I was super nervous. Like I sent out my arcs and my boyfriend was like, don't read into it, don't look at their chat, because like I gave them like their own personal chat to talk about it, and I was like, I'm not gonna like dig into it because I don't want to hear any negative feedback. I dug into it and it's all been like great feedback so far. But other than that, I'm like really surprisingly cool about it. Like I feel like I have no emotions right now. Maybe I'm just so numb. I don't know.
I think that's almost like the runner's high when you're getting at like mile 25, that you almost don't even feel your leg. Like, it's just like your body just going on autopilot just to get to the line. I think you're going to feel it when the book actually drops and you feel that. Also, I don't even know what it is. It's almost like positive anxiety. It's like you feel like those like butterflies in your stomach, but they are almost welcoming.
Yeah, I'm just not thinking about it right now. I'm trying to keep it cool.
Well, one of the things I honestly have to tip my hat off, as a person that went and just designed the book top and bottom myself, I was floored when you told me that you actually yourself designed the entire book yourself, the cover, the inside. How was that process? How was it tackling everything and all that encompassed of making a book?
Oh, okay. So first off, the entire process took me about 2 years to do all by myself, and this is with like little budget. And so like having to like download Photoshop and create everything, learn everything from the start, and then start creating was, oh my goodness, that was a tackle itself. And then getting into Canva, getting into all these different aspects, like how literally I had to learn every step of the way. And it was very difficult, very frustrating at first, but I did it. I told myself, if you want it done the way you want it to do with the budget you have to do it yourself. You have to learn this stuff. And so I did.
And I have to say, honestly, no smoke is being blown anywhere. I could not believe how professionally well done the cover was. I myself, I promise you, that was one of the things when I opened up the arc. I was like, wow, this is actually a really nice cover. I wonder where she got it from. And then when you said that before recording that you actually made it yourself, I couldn't believe it. I'm telling you, I was completely floored. I could not believe it. Speechless.
That makes me feel so good. Like it makes me feel like what I did actually, I don't know, like people, sorry, I'm getting tongue twisted. But no, that just makes me really, really feel really good to hear, for sure.
And honestly, I think it speaks to your character because as you said that you had to learn Canva, you had to learn Photoshop, you had to learn these things from the bottom in order to get to the part that you are now with your creativity, meaning that you had learned just recently in order to make this cover, and then you had this final product that I'm astonished by. Meaning I can only imagine what the actual content of this book is, the writing behind it, because that you had already had some level of interest, some level of creativity behind it before you started this process. So how was that? When did that start? The writing, the reading, when did that passion spark inside of you?
Oh goodness. So the idea of this book, okay, this is kind of embarrassing, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. I had an erotic dream about the two main characters, the female and the male alien, and in a bathtub going at it. And then I woke up and was like, this is too good not to forget. And then so I kind of just wrote a quick little draft out so I wouldn't forget it. And then after a while, like I pitched it to my Patreon patrons. And they're like, oh my God, this sounds really good. So I was like, okay, well, I'll write something up. There's the first draft. It came out like an erotic story. And then later on, I was like, you know what? I want to make this into something bigger. And so like I kept playing with it and decided, you know what? I don't want to go the erotic route. I want to go like more like plot driven, but what scenes there are, they are going to be like pretty heavy and intimate. But other than that, like the idea like behind this, like I've watched so many movies, I've read so many books, especially like sci-fi fantasy, and like I don't know, like I just had this vision, like, you know what, I just want to throw it all in there. I'm going to go all out and just make it everything, and it's just going to be this entire crazy story. And the research that went behind it, I cannot tell you how many sci-fi movies I had to watch just to like get my mind into that whole like warp drive, warp speed, like black holes, and just like, the whole works. And like the research, I've learned so much about the universe, the galaxy, and black holes and everything. And it's just so much went into this. And I really hope people notice that and it pays off and they love it.
God, talk to me about that. What movies did you watch? I mean, I'm sure you watched dozens, but what four would you say really helped you kind of visualize everything that you were trying to create at the time?
Okay, so I went back recently and rewatched all of like the newer version of the Star Trek movies. And then I really wish I could remember what the name of this TV show was. I'm pretty sure it was like on HBO or Amazon or something. And it was about like how okay, so like there's like this main girl, and like she's in this like fantasy sci-fi world, and like I can't even describe it. It was just, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to go back and figure out what the name of that show was. Wheel of Time? That kind of sounds familiar. I honestly can't remember. Anywho, I was just like so inspired by it, and just like the layout of it, like the way the plot was, like the way like the city was, and like the back and forth, and like I don't know, I kind of added that into like a whole Game of Thrones type thing with like all the different like point of views. And as the series like furthers, we're gonna get way more point of views too. And I don't know, like I'm sorry. There's just been like so many that I've binged lately, and I cannot remember all of them, but there's a ton of like great ones that I got my inspiration from.
God, I love that. I almost love that you can't put a name to like the specific ones either, because it just means that like all of it was just kind of like gestating in your head as you were watching and just like letting. I think that's why I love watching movies so much myself. Just it lets like just that, I don't know, subconscious creative mind just go, and you can just like start looking at things and be like, oh, that's an interesting idea. I wonder if you twisted it that way, and if I made my characters do this, or it's like, oh, well, I like how they did that, but I don't like how they did this. Which leads into something I always like asking: is there anything that you saw in those favorites and those classics that you immediately thought like, oh yeah, I don't want to go that route. I want to see something different in this genre. I want to bring something new to the table when it comes to this scene, this character.
Well, since I am a romance author, like my prime focus is the romance, and like, and a lot of them, they had like a tiny little nudge to like the romance aspect, but then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make it bigger. I'm gonna make more like content about that, and like I just like dove into that. But other than that, I don't know. I mean, I really enjoyed all of like the shows and movies that I watched, so I can't really say like I didn't want like a specific thing other than just like hitting the romance part of it like way stronger.
Well, that is interesting though, because like, I mean, there are a very small number of things that I can think to, but for the most part, sci-fi leans more on the action than the drama. So I do think that's like a very interesting route to go and kind of play with all those things. So what are your favorite things that you played around with? You were saying that all the research that you went to, all like study into black holes and warp drives and all these things. What are your favorite things that you kind of put together in order to play around with the idea of romance, like romance between a robot and AI, a robot, like, a crazy scene like outside of an orbiting solar miner, I don't know, things like that.
Yeah. Well, the first one I could think of, there is this scene, I won't say the name of the character, but there is one character, when they get to like the three worlds, the planets, he's like flying above the planet and like looking down at it. And he can see the other planets in the background. He can see the sun, the moon, he can see all the stars. And then like while looking down, while like the planet is like slowly, orbiting, rotating, he can just see like life, like storms down there. He could see like everything. And it's just like, I don't know. It was just like a really interesting moment to have to like visualize that and like go back to those movies and see how they did it, you know, and how they described it. And subtitles are really helpful especially for sound effects, like when I'm writing in sound effects. But yeah, no, not just that, like, I don't know, like I had to like, there's like a lot of terminology that I was not aware of. So I had to like research that. And I'm sorry, what was the question again? I'm getting off track.
No, you were on very much on track. You were right,
Okay.
almost about to hit the train station. I promise you.
Yeah.
It was great because it's exactly that type of thing that I love. It's fantasy is known for these amazing visual scenes of like, like Twisted Forest and like, Magi and like Ether and all these crazy things. With sci-fi is where I love my, like, the nebulas and all these things. So incorporating those type of concepts in with the romance, I think that's beautiful. So all these things were basically stepping stones to get to the main meat, right? Which is, what is the book about? First of all, it is going to be a part of a saga, correct?
Yes, I'm aiming no more than 7 books, 4 to 6 tops. But if there's a 7th one, yeah, it might happen.
So without giving too much away, because the people need to pick up this book, it is coming out soon. When is the official release date, by the way?
September 28th.
September 28th, folks. That's around the corner. Make sure to follow, do whatever you can, pre-order it, do whatever you can, even apply to become on the A.R.T team. Maybe a little too late for now, but for the next book and the following thing, become a fan, message her on Instagram, support the authors. All essential links will be in the description. It'll be at the bottom of the video on the banners and all over Instagram when I promote this. You already know the deal. Make sure to do the due diligence. It is well worth it, especially knowing that she put her entire foot into this for 2 years in order to create this thing. It is phenomenal and well worth the eyes because of the effort. So without giving too much away on that end, what is the book about?
Okay, so it starts off, let me just say, this is a villain's origin story. And it heavily like relies on like trauma and like the main villain trying to do better. So we've got Serena. She's a human woman from Earth, and sorry, I almost went into like a total spoiler there. But yeah, so she's abducted into space. She's abducted into space on this prisoner ship, and like the goal of the ship was to like abduct a bunch of other magical people with like powers. We don't know right away what her power is until she says it. So she's on this ship. There's this alien, Zurin. He comes and pretty much takes over the ship. He's fighting everyone on there. And he finds Serena in this prison, and he's just like instantly drawn to her. And so he rescues her, takes her back to his ship, sorry. And after that, they're just sailing along over the cosmos, getting to know each other. There's a language barrier. They have no idea how to communicate. So they use their communication through just like looks and like touches. And it's so cute. It's so adorable. And while that happens, happiness doesn't last forever. Stuff goes down. The action starts hitting. A war breaks out on the ship, and it's just chaos. And as that's happening, her powers are starting to slowly reveal, and like everyone's starting to like notice like what she is, because like up until this time, like no one has been able to identify what her secret power is. And so she's been in hiding. And other than that, there's this other like dark force about like always attracted to her and like following her. And so he like kind of like weasels his way into her, getting close to her. And it's hard to explain without giving it away. But so there's 3 main characters: Serena, Zurin, and Nolans. Nolans is this like mysterious character, and God, I love him so much. He's such a cheeky bastard. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to curse.
Oh no, you can definitely curse on this.
Oh, sweet. Okay, so yeah, so as Serena and Zurin are falling in love, getting to know each other and uncovering each other's secrets, Nolans is there, and he's kind of like this like this genius, this mad genius who's like super smooth and like trying to like guide everyone, encourage them to like, no, use your powers, come on, do it, you know. And it's all for a purpose. He has a goal in mind, and he's making it happen slowly but surely. And so like the first half of the book, it's just all in space. They're doing crazy stuff up there, dancing under the stars, and just like, I don't know, it's insane. And then so part 2 is where they actually meet the 3 worlds. But they get there, and then it just, that last 20% of the book is just like insane, like 20-50%, I can't remember how much it is. They start going crazy. Like the whole goal, I almost did another spoiler. She becomes friends with the Nolan's guy, right? He's like this like dark, mysterious character, and he's showing her around the world. Well, Zurin is like meeting with like the council, and it's just, it's insane. She has like these trials that she has to go on, and to uncover who she is, because she can't remember who she is from the past. And like, as she's doing it, she's just like flying around the world and like seeing all of Melvargan, the country, and like she's growing more powerful. She's becoming more into her power, learning who she is, and evolving and trying to ultimately become the best version of herself. She used to be the villain, now she's wanting to be the hero. And it's just about like a self-discovery and like facing your trauma, but not just with her. With Nolan's has trauma, Zurin has trauma, even the side characters all have trauma, and it's all about how they go about healing from that. And not everyone goes the right route. And that's the crazy thing about this story. It starts off as a villain's origin story, and then like that villain becomes like, tries to become better and be good. And then there you've got like the morally gray character who's just like, you know what, I don't give a fuck, you know, I can be good, I can be bad, I don't care, whatever. And then you've got other characters that are just like, no, I am good, I'm not a monster. And then who knows where they end up. And it's just like all over the place. And that's what I love about this story, is like, it's not just a romance story, it's about like, you know, like overcoming your trauma and PTSD, and like finding ways of like coping or not coping at all. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it.
My God, I'm gonna have to need a cleanup on aisle behind my chair. My brains are splattered. Oh my, I'm honestly like blown away. I'm not, no exaggeration. Like, you know how they say that like every story is like everything else, like Spider-Man is like Macbeth. If you break everything down, that there's only like a certain amount of structures. You might have just made the 8th, because I always try to make some level of comparisons. Like, oh, that's like this if you did that. I don't know where you pulled those things from. That's such a uniquely just created story. Like so many elements put together. Like maybe certain things like reminded me of like of another book, another movie, another series, but nothing that putting everything together like that. How much of the universe is kind of explored within these books?
So it's we don't see, we kind of like jump into time. So Serena's already in the prisoner ship. They're already way past the Milky Way galaxy. They're already like flying, right? And so when we come into contact with Zurin and his army, when they you know, take over the prisoner ship, like they're somewhere outside of the Melvar galaxy. And so once they get there, they get back on their ship, then it's warp drive, speed ahead to the Melvar galaxy. And that takes months. So like this whole entire first half, we're flying over the cosmos for like, I can't remember, 6 to 8 months. And that's going fast too. So it's really far. And then when we get there, or we don't actually get there, they have to go through a wormhole to get to the Melvar galaxy, because it's that far away. And so once they pass that, they come right out, and then they're home. So yeah, they cross over a lot, and they see a lot on their way too.
My God, I love those concepts. So did you take any artistic principles, any artistic, like, I can't remember the thing, like liberties, any artistic liberties with what they saw in space? Because that's one of the most beautiful things about messing around in space, is that we just don't know what's out there. So could you give anything away of like things that you played around with?
So like, okay, obviously there's stars up there. Not just that, there's like clusters, like, you know how like you see like these like beautiful pastel pink, yellow, orangey clusters that just like float around up there,
Mm.
like galaxies and stuff. So like I kind of twisted that a bit, and this might be a little spoiler, but it's fine. I'll give it away anyway. So at one point they're outside the ship in space, dancing amongst the stars, and all of a sudden here comes this like swarm of what I kind of describe it as like a swarm of birds, but it's like a swarm of clusters, and it's stardust. And it's like, I don't know, just things like that. Like I had to like create, but also like give like a little twist to it. So we think it's just like some star cluster out there, but in this world, it's like the souls of the dead. It's like their dust. It's literally their
Oh,
like their
shit.
stardust that rose from as their ashes rose up, and then now they're traveling home to wherever they may go to be reborn. And it's just like this beautiful thing that they get to dance around and experience, and like that's what I love, like adding like two different things to it. But other than that, we don't really see much besides just black holes and wormholes and just like sonic booms and just blast and star reaching for stars and just like explosions, and it's intense.
Intense doesn't even cut it. We're gonna have to come up with another word now. Um, my God, nebulas are actually made from like the souls of the people that died within that galaxy. That's the concept, honestly. That's up there. That's up there with like the greats. That's up there with Asimov. That's up there with Philip K. Dick. That's unreal, honestly. Um, now, what is something that always interests me is that there's like a dichotomy when it comes to creation that I feel like only like other authors can like understand. Is that you have like the surface level, which even calling it surface is like not really doing it justice, but it's kind of like what the reader kind of interprets of just like, oh yeah, well the story is about this, it's about that. For example, if you were to ask J.K. Rowling what Harry Potter like was about, she's probably going to tell you it's like, oh, it was about an orphan and like, you know, the emotional conflicts of the main character growing up and finally feeling at home in a place that seems magical and like, you know, all these things. If you ask a fan what Harry Potter was, you ask my niece what Harry Potter was, it's like, oh, it's about magic and all these things. It's like, you know, two different versions of what it is. I feel the author always knows the emotional inspiration of the book, and that is like kind of puts the surface on top of it in order to make it into a story. So you were talking about all these PTS things, well, PTSD elements of the character and of the growth of the character. So now that we know the whole fictional aspects where you got those ideas from the movies, the books, you know, just the idea of being in the cosmos and dancing among the stars and all these ideas of the nebulas and all those beautiful thoughts, where did the underlying emotional inspiration come from?
That's something I don't really talk about, but I mean, just because like no one ever asked, but it comes from me. Like my whole thing, I write dark books because they come with dark emotions and trauma, and like I won't go into detail of my own. All I will say is like I have a lifetime's worth, and so like writing is my outlet, it's my escape, it's my therapy. So I literally just transform, like I push those emotions into my books and I make my characters have them. And it's kind of like my way to be like acknowledged, you know, like, because I never really felt like I had that, like a support system that was like, hey, are you okay? You know? And so like I make my characters go through that some sort of trauma. It's not my identical trauma. And then I have like other characters, like their lovers, like ask them, like, are you okay? I'm here for you, you know, if you need someone to talk to. And it's kind of my way of saying, like, you're lucky, Serena, you have that. And so yeah, it's just like so much of me goes into these characters, and like people don't even realize that, like unless you read like my personal diary, like you'll never know what's me and what's not. But mostly like anxiety, panic attacks, just like being nervous in crowds, like I'm nervous now, but like my characters portray those in some way, and like it just makes me feel acknowledged. And yeah, so that's why I give them that.
God, that is beautiful. And I definitely didn't mean to pry on anything personal. What I wanted was more like that of like the like where that comes from, like all the emotional stuff. Because there are people that can derive it from other people. It's like, oh, I went through something that I saw my parents going through something very trouble, or when people experience it themselves. Not that either one of them is necessarily different, but I think it's just interesting to see where that therapy comes from. I love comedy, and to me, comedians are people that went through very traumatic issues themselves and found a way to cope with it through comedy. And then when they go on stage, that's their version of therapy. To me, writing is our version of therapy. We can write out those scenes, we can create characters that are reflections of ourselves, and then we can get them the nice end at the final page of the book that maybe we didn't go through. You know, kind of like the vision, that vision of final like recovery that is hard to actually achieve in the real world, but we can make it in a fictional world. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things of writing. I think that's why it's like beautiful that authors talk, because when you talk to on the reader level, it's like not to say that people like are not capable of those type of things, but I think when you actually write a book yourself and you put your own emotions and you release so much of yourself into those texts, into these characters that people would never know unless they personally knew you or you told them, like, oh no, that actually happened in real life to me. I know that I sprinkled it like with aliens and things that made it seem impossible, but no, that scenario actually went through that. And I think that's that was one of the most beautiful things of art in general, that these creative people, that you can take these things that are just so hard to deal with, that are so dark, and can make it into something that people can not only derive entertainment from, but growth from. They can read and be like, oh, I actually went through that myself. And maybe that fictional recovery at the end of the book can be made a reality to somebody else just by seeing it happen. It's a beautiful thing, honestly.
Yeah. Thank you.
And wow, so much. But the main thing, and it's something that I just realized like halfway through this recording, is when this episode releases is when her book releases. War Amongst the Stars comes out. So when you are hearing this episode, when it is released, the book is out. Make sure to buy it. Stop playing around. Honestly, everything that we just talked about, how are you not sold? If you're listening to this, I'm gonna assume that you like sci-fi, because that's the majority of what we talk about. And this is right up the alley with everything else. I mean, we're talking about nebulas being created by the dust of the people that inhabit the galaxy, folks. And that is just like a little part of the story. I can only imagine how deep this creativity goes. And this is just book 1 out of a potential 7. We're talking about Harry Potter level of saga here. This is real as it gets. And we are here at the ground level. You're basically investing in Bitcoin when it was like, 2017. Get on this, honestly. I'm going to turn it over to you now. Is there anything that you want to promote on your end that we haven't talked about yet? Whatever it is, you said that you had a Patreon, whatever it is, I'll give it over to you now. Let the fans know.
I do have a Patreon. I've kind of neglected it since I started writing this book, but it is there to support me in my writing. Other than that, I have a candle collaboration coming up with Apothecary 19, which those characters into candles for Serena, Nolans, and Zern will also be released on release day, September 28th. Other than that, the ebook will be on Kindle Unlimited. The paperback and hardback will be released on Amazon, and Barnes & Noble, it won't be ready yet, but it will come. I will also be releasing a hardback with a dust jacket on there, and that's going to be a special edition. It's going to have a bonus chapter, and that one's going to be really pretty. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that one. But that's pretty much it.
My God. This definitely gets the stamp of look out for this person, because honestly, I am just blown away. I'm still blown away by the fact that you made the cover. If we're talking about just levels of impression here, I'm still blown away. Yeah, exactly. I'm blown away by just that, and just bring it all together, like how well you're taking care of this marketing thing. Like, I myself am re-releasing my debut just because I feel like I dropped the ball so much. And that's just because I've seen how much more I could have done within a year since after releasing it. The fact that you're already at this point for this book is unbelievable to me. You are honestly really, really hitting the ground running with this. I really let's tip my hat off to you. This is phenomenal. I can only wish you the best and the most success possible. And for anyone listening, help get to that goal. Hit it. Buy the book when it comes out. You already know how Amazon works. If you have it at 15 people buy it at the same time, she will hit bestseller, and all those things add up. Make sure to do it. Buy the book. Do what you can. Support Tristin, because my God, it is worth it. And of course, make sure to check with us next week. This is the end of today's episode with Tristin, the phenomenal Clark. Gonna have to put that as your middle name. This is the AR's Tales, aka the A.R.T podcast. I've been AR. This has been Tristin. Thank you for coming on, and make sure to listen in next week. Peace out.
Thank you.